This symbol, the swirl of the Zonai, is a motif that has been haunting me since ancient times, as they have two several meanings, time and wind. They are the ultimate symbol, as even as the famous Triforce. For some of you this isn't important at all, it's just another small thing of the series. But for me, this symbolism has been found in almost every Zelda game that I've played. And it means something very important, especially now in Breath of the Wild 2. As you look closely at the myrtle where we can find Ganondorf in maybe the ancient Zonai ruins, there is even a swirl on his horse, indicating some kind of connection between the Gerudo and the Zonai. And even the motif that you can find in some of the games is on the back of his horse. This goes back all the way since ancient times, as it is another indication of the gods. As the Triforce was made for whoever wanted its power, the goddesses created a competition between demons and humans, both fighting with one another to claim these powers. However, this was intervened by someone called the goddess Hylia, that was the protector of the Triforce. This symbol is so important that even the battlefield of this place, right here at the sealed grounds, is a large swirl. Looking at these events, you would think that the goddesses would help if they saw evil winning over the other side, but demise was just another product of them. Right here, we see Vaati standing next to eye symbols, with the swirl motif all around it. And even here you can see the eyes upside down, an indication of something that will happen far away into the future. As here you can definitely tell that there's more eye symbols everywhere, including these pines that you can see on top of it. Those are lotus flowers, something that seems to be a thing in Buddhism. Now, why would you show all these symbols if Vaati isn't anything related to this game? You see, Vaati is the wind mage, and his eye symbol is upside down, something we saw in the trailer as well. Skyloft is in the sky, and there's a mentioning of a floating city in the sky. In the next clip, we see the machine that we have to fight in the Tower of the Gods. If you really look closely, you can not only tell all these motifs with the swirls, as they are pretty big on the screen, but look also at the top of the head of the machine itself. It looks a little bit like a sun symbol, but also like a gear. Well, if you remember this very well, and you go back to Skyward Sword, you'll notice that the gear is also a part of the time portals in Skyward Sword. And if you even want to go on with this, they also have a resemblance to the hands of Twilight Princess within the realm of Twilight. Right here, if you look very closely at the gear as well, and you look at the figures on top of these things that are on the left and the right side that are turning here, you'll notice that there is also another symbol there that looks very familiar. What's even more crazy is that when Link walks into the time portal, you'll notice that when it opens, it looks like a swirl, with the exact same colors of the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. The Zonai seem to have worshipped three different statues: the boar, the dragon, and the owl. Now this was done as an ancient perspective on the Triforce. However, the Zonai are prehistoric. We do not know what this exactly means, and what is prehistoric or not. If the Zonai are prehistoric, then this would mean that they built the Labyrinths during prehistoric times, and that the Sheikah took these over as spiritual journeys to conquer their weaknesses. There's one thing in common with the dark interlopers of the past, and there is even a dark mirror to be found in Breath of the Wild, broken into pieces. While I do think this is an Easter egg, it will also be important in Breath 2. I feel that these will be fast travel devices in the next game, and the Zonai once upon a time used these with their magic to teleport across their kingdom. The motif of the swirl has the meaning of infinity and goes back in our history to the Greeks and the Romans. But there are motifs in other parts of the world. The walls we can find all across their kingdom, with these strange cylinders going down and up, is the inspiration of a real structure that still exists today in Cambodia. Nintendo loves to take inspirations from other things, maybe even steal it if you see it that way. But that is fine, considering them always making amazing stuff. I believe that once upon a time, the Zonai weren't evil at one point. I believe that these beings used to live right after the story of Four Swords Adventures, which follow the timeline, but I mean it literally follows the timeline. The Sky Palace in the sky mentioned by this child is obviously a reference to the Uka and their palace in the sky. As they evolved from the Skyloftians, they had enough time to evolve into something far superior. The only question remains, other than gameplay mechanics, is why we never saw any of them returning to the surface, unless something has happened there as well. Labyrinths built by the Zonai to test their mightiest warriors, being given their armor as their conquest, are in fact palaces. The difference to a labyrinth is not that it looks like a maze that has dead ends everywhere, but it usually has one long path to glory, which is always in the middle of the labyrinth. Given that the Zonai built these structures, means that they had to know about future fights and what was to come. Their most strongest warriors went into these places, searching for these gifts of the gods as their way to enlightenment. The Zonai are also based on the Mayans, as the structures they created look very identical that you can find in many different historical temples in real life. Here are a few examples. For Ganondorf to be in the Zonai Pyramid means that the Zonai hated Ganondorf, but it could also have been a countermeasure to his curse. The Gerudo, the proud race of the desert, once had a dark king ruling over them. This king was eventually slain, thousands of years ago, by the hero of Twilight. After a long line of peace, a new male Gerudo was born, but was not like a king this time. Now here lies my problem. The Ganondorf found within the Zonai Pyramid must be the Twilight Princess Ganondorf, as each reincarnation brings along his scars of the past, like the head jewel on his head because he was demise, and the damage he took in his chest during the Twilight era. This must be a new reincarnated form of Ganondorf, or Four Swords Adventures cannot have happened, as Ganondorf already reincarnated into a new form, and the Twilight Princess Ganondorf had to die for this to happen. But I have to go for the Ganondorf that was stopped by the hero of Twilight, as Zelda even mentioned the Twilight in one of her speeches. So the only way for this to work is that Ganondorf was captured in Twilight Princess, but was stored away inside the tomb. The arm hand that will merge with Link eventually has a mind of its own. It is a new character that will be introduced to us, similar how fire is within the sword. How else can the hand pick up Link from falling down, yet he was holding down Ganondorf when he was still dead? Also, notice how when Ganondorf was alive, his hands on the mural look identical to the arm that is holding him down. This is why I think that we are going to see new technology regarding the Zonai that we haven't seen before, same as how the Guardians were introduced to us in Breath of the Wild. And still, I'm not done yet, as I still believe that the Lizalfos have a part to play, as the statues with the lizards on it do not exactly look human. You don't really have to agree with me that this has to be the Lizalfos, but let's be real. These pillars do have, or seem to have, some kind of lizards figures on it, right? Sorry, I had to do this. The last part I want to talk about is the owl statue of the Zonai. And this is a symbol of wisdom. Nothing else seems to have connections here. The statues can be found across Hyrule, but nothing else is really explained about it. The only thing that does have references to wind or birds is what we are going to find up in the sky. Breath of the Wild takes place before Four Swords Adventures, then Vaati can still be around. In my other videos I spoke about the owl symbol before, and here I shall do it again. Take a look between these two images, and it's not my imagination that these are the same or at least are incredibly similar. As the Zonai Swirl is as old as the timeline itself, going back all the way to Skyward Sword, they couldn't have known about Vaati at all, as that happened way later. This could indicate that they were able to see the future. This is not just speculation, as premonitions and future sight are powers given to the royal family and other people of Hyrule. This explains how the fortune teller, which we do not know the identity of, told us about the prophecy. Future sight goes back to ancient times, which was also shown in Skyward Sword, so it's not far-fetched or strange to believe that the Zonai tribe had these powers as well, and they were in fact magic wielders. The core on the forehead of Ganondorf looks to have a similar style to the Zonai and the Twilight, with the orange glow looking extremely identical to the ancient cores. The green robot that we have seen with the eyes everywhere has the other evil eye version of Vaati. And what is even more strange, and I don't think anyone saw this before, is that when you put the robot on the side, you can definitely see these moon symbols that Vaati had on his head when transformed. And even the Sheikah shield that we have seen in the trailer has the strange pointing things going up, something I've never seen before, unless you mention Vaati. This is why I believe that this is all connected in some way, and this is the proof right here. The more evidence I present to you that Vaati was involved in some capacity that might have inspired the Zonai more than we think. And from the other games that clearly shows us that the fortune tellers are all Sheikah, must mean that the Zonai could have been the interlopers. Or how should I say this? The Zonai are the precursor people before the Sheikah and the interlopers. And if that is the case, what if they started everything and went back in time to alter history as we know it?